Right, just want a quick welcome. I'm Sarah White, the product manager from Dive Worldwide and Regal Dive. I've been with the company, 11 years now, or 10 and a half, depending if you take COVID on board or not, having been on furlough for quite a bit. Just a bit of admin, as you know, we've been chatting away. It's great to see some familiar faces, or names, should I say, who have been to quite a few of our talks. Hello again. This is being recorded, so we can use it in the future for people who need a bit more inspiration and to learn a bit about whale sharks. Feel free to use the chat, and later we'll use the Q&A. I will try and keep on top of things and answer you, otherwise I will put them to Sophia, and later on we'll get Jonathan back to join us on the Q&A. That's about it, really. So without further ado, just want to introduce her to Sofía Green Iturralde. Been working on that, but not very well. Sophia, I believe, is currently in Lisbon, just finishing off her master's on the diving behaviour of whale sharks, and she just learned something new about 5 minutes ago, perhaps, from Jonathan. She's a biologist, has spent most of her life in Ecuador and the Galapagos, been snorkeling with sharks since age 2, I understand, and has been involved with many local conservation projects and initiatives out there to do with whale sharks, obviously, turtles and plastics and everything and everything in between, no doubt. She's an integral part of the Galapagos Whale Shark project and will be leading our exclusive trip in September 2022 on board the Aqua Galapagos, but we'll talk about that later. Our other panelist this evening is Jonathan Green, the founder of the Galapagos Whale Shark Project, excuse me, tongue-tied. He's a naturalist, scientist, photographer and a diver, keeps himself busy. Amongst other things, since the project started in 2011, he's led the way in studying and monitoring the whale sharks around the Galapagos, with the support from the Galapagos Conservation Society here in the UK, who do some great work over there, not just for the whale sharks, but for the islands in general, and enabling his team to continue working with the project and studying the whale sharks, which is probably a job that most people here would like to do. Right, shall we get you started, Sophia? We'll have a short presentation from Sophia about everything, and then I will talk to you a bit about the boat, and then we'll have the Q&A. I shall over to you, Sophia. Thank you.
Excellent. Can you all see my screen, Sarah?
I can see, hear, and see your screen and hear you, yes. So hopefully everyone else can too.
Excellent. Wonderful. So good evening with everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, Sarah, for that wonderful introduction. So tonight I want to talk to all of you a little bit about the Galapagos, diving in this amazing archipelago, and of course we want to talk about whale sharks. So without further ado, the Galapagos is a spectacular place. It just has unique flora and fauna not seen anywhere else in the world, such as the giant tortoise seen here in this image, incredible diversity of species such as the vampire fish, and the underwater world, especially for me, is amazing. It's just booming with life, bursting with life, because of its location and the current system that I'll explain to you a little bit more about in a minute. It just has the most amazing mix of species. Here is a place where we can dive and see penguins underwater, the northernmost penguin, the Galapagos penguin, also endemic to the islands. The flightless cormorant, another endemic species that can actually dive up to 40 meters depth, another incredible creature to find underwater. And the only marine reptile in the world, the marine iguana. So this is an incredible mix of species that we can see here. And of course, the star of tonight's show are whale sharks. So as some of you might have already heard, the whale sharks are sometimes very curious. You can see this whale shark approaching the divers. They pop out of the blue, and it's just fantastic to see them underwater. The Galapagos particularly has the largest whale sharks you will see around the world. This female must have been about 11 to 13 meters long, probably. So what are we doing as the Galapagos Whale Shark Project in the archipelago to study this species. The Galapagos Whale Shark Project began around the late 1990s. My dad, Jonathan Green, was a naturalist and dive guide in the islands. And he started realizing that the whale sharks could be sighted in this location every year between the months of July and December. And when he asked around, and all the dive guides didn't really know much about this population. And when he started investigating further, he realized this was actually common around the world. Nobody really knew much about the species. So he found it really fascinating, and joining forces with Dr. Alex Hearn, they created the Galapagos Whale Shark Project. And since the year of 2011, they've been carrying out at least one yearly expedition to study this amazing animal. And since then, the team has grown. We have a team of scientists from all over the world. Here in this photo, you can see people from Japan, from Switzerland, Germany, from Ecuador, England. So it's just a fantastic team of divers and researchers. I personally joined the project in 2017. I was very lucky. I was already working in the archipelago and the conservation of the islands. And lucky for me, somebody could not go that year. So I was able to jump on board. And since then, there was just no turning back. I was absolutely captivated by the species and by the idea of saving them from extinction. So now I'm actually, as Sarah mentioned, finishing my master's thesis investigation on the diving behavior of whale sharks and learning something new every single day. Currently, I work in the project as the data analyst, field researcher, and since from this year on, I'll be working as a leader in communications, education, and the outreach program. So the name of the whale sharks is slightly misleading. I know a lot of you have already been in the water with the whale shark, but just in case you don't know, the whale shark is actually a shark and not a whale. It is the largest shark in the ocean, largest fish in the ocean, and the largest shark to ever have existed, even larger than Megalodon. It is the only member of the Rhincodontidae family and known as Rhincodontipus by its Latin name. What we know about whale sharks is actually a lot less than what we don't know about whale sharks. Whale sharks can grow up to 18 meters in length and weigh 20 tons in weight. This is absolutely mind-blowing. They love to eat very, very tiny creatures such as plankton, fish larvae, coral eggs, and small fish by filtration. They are ovoviviparous, which means that even though they do have eggs, these eggs mature inside of the whale shark and they give birth to live young. We know a little bit about their distribution worldwide, and that we know that they can dive to at least 1,928 meters deep. So their distribution is circumglobal. We can see them all around the world in tropical waters and warm temperate waters, in between 35 degrees north to 40 degrees south of latitude. So here you can see that they're actually sighted quite a few places around the world. And just so you can see this quick heat map, the areas where they're sighted are nice and warm. Whale sharks do prefer temperatures of between 23 degrees Celsius all the way up to 30 degrees Celsius. And that is actually one of the greatest reasons for studying them. If you're like me and get cold easily, they are the best shark to study because of this reason. These are just a few of the aggregations that we have worldwide. Some of you may have already seen them and dived with them, snorkeled with them in some of these aggregations. And what is interesting is that we're actually starting to see whale sharks in new areas where we didn't see them before. They're now being spotted in even higher latitudes, like over here in the Azores Islands or in the Canary Islands, where they weren't spotted before. Some people hypothesize that due to global warming and the warming of the oceans, this could be enlarging the whale shark's habitat and distribution. So a little bit about the current system in Galapagos and why we find all this diversity of species in this area is because of its location and the amazing current system that's at work here. So we have warm water currents coming in from the north with the Panama Current. So this brings in warm waters, and that's why we see tropical fish, warm water fish. Then we have the very, very cold waters coming all the way down from the Antarctic up the coastline of South America and into the Galapagos Islands. That's the Cromwell Current. And that brings very cold, nutrient-rich water, which also brings a lot of life to the islands. Also, from the other side, from west to east, we have a subcurrent that actually comes in from the west, hits the Galapagos platform and rises up, causing an upwelling. Also brings a lot of cold, nutrient-rich water, and therefore a lot of life. So this is why we see cold water species such as penguins, but we also see warm water and tropical fish. So it's just an absolutely amazing site. The Galapagos is a marine reserve since 1998, and it is also a World Heritage Site. And for now, it is protected at 40 nautical miles from the baseline, which is around 138,000 square kilometers. So where do we do most of our work? We are very lucky. We do most of our work in Darwin's Arch. This is one of the top dive sites from around the world, and a lot of divers dream to be here. And the reason why it's such an amazing site is because of its topography. So this island and the other far northern island, Wolf, were not formed the same way as the central islands of the Galapagos. They're actually not part of the Galapagos platform. And due to this, they have this very oceanic topography. So you can see here on the map that very close to the coastline, we have very steep drop-offs into deep, deep water, especially around the dive site of Darwin's Arch. This is why we see highly oceanic and pelagic species such as adult whale sharks, tunas, other sharks, cetaceans. So it just makes it a fantastic site. Here to our left, we can see the Darwin Arch, the way it used to look like. And then, as most of you might already know, here in the center, we see what the arch looks like now. It actually collapsed not very long ago. This geological collapse is absolutely natural. You see this stone is made out of tuff, which is just compacted ash. So it was very natural for this to weather with time and then collapse. The collapse of the arch has not affected the underwater life at all. So it still continues to be one of the top dive sites from around the world. It was just a little sad because it was a beautiful, iconic kind of image. However, it is still amazing. And then here on the right, you can see a satellite view of Darwin Island and then Darwin's Arch. Usually this is where we anchor to dive, and then this is where we'll actually go to dive. And then just so you can see a quick close-up of the topography that I'm mentioning, here is the island, and then here's Darwin's Arch dive site. So you see how immediately after the drop-off is very, very extreme into deep, deep waters. So this is usually where we sight the whale sharks passing. So as I mentioned earlier, the whale shark is the largest fish in the ocean. However, it remains to be one of the greatest mysteries. We don't actually know that much about the whale shark. So what we don't really know much about their global population, size, structure. We don't really know where they reproduce, where they give birth, where the pups live until 3 to 5 years old. And we don't really fully understand their migratory routes or where they're going from one place to another. So because we don't know that, research about the species is actually very important. And what we're doing in the Galapagos specifically is we're determining the sex ratio, so knowing which individuals visit the islands. We're running photo identification, satellite tracking, ultrasounds, DNA sampling, blood sampling, and this year we're starting on a health assessment research. So what this means. First of all, how do we tell a male whale shark apart from a female whale shark? When they're adults, this is actually very easy. As you can tell, here's our male whale shark. They have 2 giant claspers that actually extend out from the sides of the pelvic fins. And when they are adults, it is very clear to see, not only from below, but also from the sides. Whereas the female will have nothing underneath the pelvic fins except for an opening into her cloaca. However, when they are juvenile whale sharks, this is a lot harder to do. So sometimes we do have to get under and up close and personal with the whale sharks to be able to tell whether they are male or female. And what we have discovered in the Galapagos specifically is that we have 99% adult females in this site, which makes it a unique site worldwide. Nowhere else in the world will you be able to see the giant adult females, and mostly females, that we see in the Galapagos Islands. Most of the other coastal aggregations where most of you might have seen a whale shark tend to be juveniles and males. So we're also running photo ID, and what this means is Basically, the spot pattern of the side of the flanks of the whale shark, especially the area between the fifth gill slit and the end of the dorsal of the pectoral fin, is unique to each shark. So basically, this is like our fingerprint, and we use this area to identify each shark as an individual. So this provides us information on the population dynamics, the size and structure, the frequency at which they visit each site, their site fidelity, as well as growth rates. Besides that side photo that we take, we also are interested in taking any photos of any scars that might help us distinguish between animals. So you see here quite a few severe scars caused by different reasons. These help us identify each shark. As you might have heard, this works as it does with other animals, like the swirls of the face of a polar bear or the spot pattern of cheetahs and jaguars. Specifically in the Galapagos, we have identified over 600 new individuals, which is excellent. The more we upload these individual photos onto the Wild Book for Whale Sharks catalog, the more we find out about how the population works. It's an excellent form of passive tracking. So if we upload a photo, then we might get resightings of when they were sighted again in the Galapagos, or if they're ever sighted elsewhere in the world. Actually, a couple of years ago, we did have an amazing resighting. This whale shark was first sighted and reported on the Wild Book in 2007. And in 2019, one of our researchers actually spotted this whale shark again in 2019. That's a 12-year difference resighting. And it is fantastic to know that these whale sharks actually do return to the islands, that it's doing well, it was alive. So it's always amazing when you do get these resightings. We've also had a 9-year resighting and a 5-year resighting. So the more we upload photos to the Wild Book, the more we discover amazing things like this. We also do satellite tracking. As I mentioned, photo ID is a form of passive tracking, but we need to know a little bit more about their fine scale movements. So we do use satellite tags to keep track of where they're going to. And here you can see the type of tags that we've used in the past, that we're using in the present. So you see a little bit about the evolution of the tag types and the way we used to tag. So before we had these long lines with little tethers and a little anchor, and we used to attach them under the epidermis of the shark using a pressure spear gun. The shark didn't feel this at all, but we have decided to move on to using these fin mount clamps, which just make the tagging a little smoother. It has increased our retention rate, so we can track them for longer periods of time, and we actually get more information with this. And it just provides a better image for the media. You know, it would never look good to have divers studying whale sharks that love whale sharks, pointing a gun at them, even though we knew that this did not harm them at all. And over the past 10 years, we've already tagged over 100 whale sharks and tracked over 100 whale sharks. However, it's only recently that we're getting very, very incredible tracks, mostly due to the new types of technology and the fact that we lose less tags by attaching them this way.
Fewer tags.
So just so I can show you what the tagging process looks like. This is actually me tagging an adult whale shark last year in August. She must have been about 13 meters long. So you can see the size of me right next to that amazing whale shark. So you see that was very quick, very easy. I just attached the clamp onto the top of the dorsal fin and done. That was it. So that whole process took less than 30 seconds. And then you can also see our other researcher, Jenny. She just took a photo of the right side of the whale shark and now goes on to the left side, snaps a shot, and that is done. That whale shark didn't even realize we were there, and we completed our methodologies in less than 40 seconds. What we have seen with this is that our whale sharks go everywhere, basically. They like to keep us guessing, and we are investigating as to what drives these movements, what environmental variables, if it's sea surface temperature, if they're looking for food, what makes them move in these directions. So here you can see the maps from the tracks from 2008 all the way up to 2018. Also earlier, I mentioned to you that whale sharks can dive up to at least 1,928 meters. This is actually just the deepest dive recorded, but this has been, it was basically a lucky tag. Usually the tags that we have, the technology that we have up to now is not capable of going below depths of 2 kilometers underwater. They usually implode. So this tag actually survived up to almost 2,000 kilometers, 2,000 meters of depth, and that came up, rose up to the surface and gave this information of a deep dive. However, we do believe that the whale sharks might be diving deeper than this. And this is why we're working in collaboration with the Georgia Aquarium and developing this version of a deep tag that could actually go down up to around plus or minus 4,000 meters depth, so that we can actually discover what depth they really dive to. Also really, really fascinating. We are the first team to be running ultrasounds on wild whale sharks. This has already been performed in captive whale sharks in aquariums, but we have started doing this in the Galapagos on our wild whale sharks. And the reason why we're doing this is because, as I mentioned, the whale sharks that we see in the Galapagos are these massive adult female whale sharks. And we've noticed that they come with a large distended abdomen. And what this could mean is they could be pregnant. That's one hypothesis. Some other people might say that this is just because the females are larger, they need this body mass to be able to move properly. But we want to make sure that we know what the reason is. What we know about whale shark reproduction is not much. What we know is from a female whale shark that was caught off of Taiwan in 1995. And when she was opened, they found out that she had 304 fetuses inside. That is a lot of fetuses to carry inside of you at one time. And when they sampled a portion of these whale sharks, they realized that all of these came from the same male. So that means that this whale shark only has to encounter a male once to be able to produce this amount of children, which would explain why we rarely see adult male and female whale sharks in sighting locations. Another amazing thing was that these fetuses were actually all at different stages of development, which would imply some form of delayed fertilization. So the female whale shark can actually store the sperm and then slowly and opportunistically be fertilizing her eggs so that all her whale sharks are born at different times, which is just a great method for most of them to survive. So the ultrasounds that we started doing in the Galapagos, we began with this process in 2017 with our amazing collaborating researchers from the Okinawa Churashima Foundation. They were already doing this on their wild whale sharks in Japan, on their aquarium whale sharks, sorry. And they came to do it in 2017. Unfortunately, that year, the ultrasound was not powerful enough because of the size of these whale sharks and the fact that whale sharks have one of the thickest skins of any animal on the planet, of up to 30 centimeters of just epidermis. The ultrasound in 2017 was not able to actually capture any images. So the team came back in 2018 and ran a few more ultrasounds, and this is what we saw. So personally, I can't really see that much on the image on the left. I'm not experienced enough to actually be able to read that. But luckily, our team of the researchers in Japan were very kind and drew this for us. So they showed mature follicles in here, which show that these whale sharks are sexually mature and could be ready to reproduce at any time. However, up till now, we have not found any specific evidence showing that these whale sharks are pregnant. But we only have very few samples up to now, so we are actually continuing with this research currently. We're also running DNA sampling, and what this is for, we basically want to see which whale sharks are reproducing with which other whale sharks. So we know that there is very low genetic deviation, which means that the whale sharks from different aggregation sites, different sighting locations must be interbreeding with each other, but we just don't know where. So by using genetics, we might discover a little bit more about which populations are connected to each other. We're also carrying out blood sampling to run blood chemistry analysis, hormone analysis, once again, to test whether they're pregnant or not. We're doing general health studies. And another very important thing we're doing is stress analysis. So we take these blood samples, and immediately once we go back on board after our dives, we test the lactic acid levels, which allow us to see the stress levels of these whale sharks, to make sure that none of the methods that we're using to study these whale sharks are actually causing any undue stress. We do not want our research to affect them. And luckily, up to now, we have not seen any signs of stress. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes they don't even realize we're there. We might have tagged them and they didn't even see us. So this is actually excellent because we don't want to change their natural behavior. Then in future studies, we will be running a health assessment study in collaboration with the Georgia Aquarium starting this year. So that's actually very exciting. That's coming up. And I've been talking about whale sharks for quite a while now. And why does this matter? What's the importance of this? Well, with whale sharks, we don't really know what their future holds for them. In the past 50 years, their population has declined. In the past 75 years, their population has declined by over 50%. And actually, in 2016, the IUCN Red List downgraded them from vulnerable to endangered, meaning that their populations are still in decline. And this is mostly due to anthropogenic impact, such as fishing, both objective and incidental, boat strikes, marine pollution, and climate change. And if you take a minute to look at this image on this slide, you may see that there is actually a huge, huge gash in the head of this whale shark, which by miracle had healed properly, but she was missing a huge chunk of her head. And we believe that this might have been due to a boat strike. So basically the propeller cut through her head. Mostly in the past, there were a lot of objective fisheries for whale sharks for the use of their skins, meat, and oil. But nowadays, what's more worrying is the whale sharks being caught as bycatch by industrial fisheries. Because of the immense fishing pressure that we have on our oceans, it is actually very common for them to capture juvenile whale sharks. And a lot of times, even if they would want to release these sharks back into the water, they will not be alive anymore. And other times they just don't. A lot of fishermen might not be interested in releasing them back into the ocean because they know the value of the fins of these sharks. One single fin can actually go for over $20,000 in the fin trade market. So that is absolutely crazy. And because of this, we still have a few objective fisheries still looking for whale sharks on purpose and fishing them for this purpose. One processing plant in China was noted to have been processing over 600 whale sharks a year, which is absolutely brutal for a very slow reproducing species. These shark fins are also used for trophies, and then their cartilage is also used for medicine. Some of you might know, some of you might not, that sometimes their cartilage is used in medicine for joints. So it's very, very important that when all of us go and buy this type of medicine, we make sure that there is no shark in our medicine. So we want to make sure that the ingredient list does not have anything that might say anything about elasmus or squalus, because this would indicate that it has shark in it, and we do not want to be supporting this. Whale sharks are a fantastic umbrella species. And what this means is that because it's such a charismatic animal, and we all love encountering it underwater, by protecting the whale shark, which is relatively easier to find funding for and research than other animals might be, by protecting this animal and the areas of the ocean that it uses, we're protecting a lot of other species as well, such as sharks, rays, turtles, fish, reefs. So it is a very, very important factor. Specifically, the Galapagos Whale Shark Project has a few whale sharks with a story, and I just want to tell you about 3 very, very important whale sharks to us. So Hope is a whale shark that we tagged in 2019. She was a whale shark that we kept track of very frequently. She was a shallow swimmer, so we would constantly see her track. And during the pandemic, we were seeing this amazing track heading out all the way west, and she started looping back, and we thought that she might be the first whale shark we would record leaving and returning to the Galapagos Islands. So we named her Hope. However, in the middle of the pandemic, she stopped transmitting, and we believe that she might have fallen prey to industrial fisheries, and we can't be certain, but we believe this because the area where she disappeared, where she stopped transmitting, was an area of very, very high fishing pressure. And also her satellite tag was giving a high quality reading, which most likely means it was out of the water. And then her last transmission, the last 30 minutes of her transmission, it shows her traveling at a speed of 9 knots, which is impossible for a whale shark. Usually our whale sharks will be cruising at around 3 knots and will not surpass the 5 knots of speed. So we just believe that she might have been caught by industrial fisheries. So in the middle of a pandemic, when everyone needed that little bit of light, it was literally like losing hope. Because she was a shark with a name, she actually captured the attention of many, many people. And she gave the message that this just isn't happening just to one shark. This is happening to so many endangered species as well. And because she had a name, people actually cared to hear this story. And so people wrote stories about her, drew comics about her, even made songs about her. And it was amazing to see how much people cared about this subject at the time. Then we have Coco, a whale shark that we tagged in August of last year. And this whale shark gave us a fantastic track. She basically moved from the island of Darwin all the way to Coco's Island, using this kind of marine corridor area, the seamount, called the Galapagos Cocos migratory route. This area is actually right now in discussion between the governments of Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, and Costa Rica. They're discussing whether or not this should become a marine protected area. And having tracks such as this whale shark's track, along with other endangered species such as turtle tracks and shark tracks that actually use this route a lot to connect between marine protected areas, goes to show the importance of protecting this area as well for their survival. So here we see other species that move between the marine protected areas. And then we have Nemo. Nemo, after we lost hope and we had thought that she was going to be the first whale shark we tracked, leaving and returning to the Galapagos, we actually tagged another whale shark in 2020 named Nemo, because as you can see in the image, she's actually missing part of her pectoral fin. And she was the first ever recorded migration, leaving and returning to the Galapagos Marine Reserve. So after an 80-day journey, going out all the way out east, and then returning to just north of Isabella Island, and then back up to Darwin Island in a journey of around 1,600 kilometers, she was the first homing migration that we ever recorded, which goes to show the importance of protecting areas such as the Galapagos. So earlier I mentioned that the Galapagos was protected 40 nautical miles from the baseline. And currently there's a project to expand this marine protected area. And it is very, very important to use material like the one that our study provides for the justification of this type of project. So what the project is planning is to create a marine protected area almost double the size that it is now. And it would be a multi-use protected area, which would have no-take zones, like this blue area, where no fisheries, no extraction would be allowed. And then we have areas where we would have very regulated, responsible fisheries occurring. Fisheries are still very, very important for the livelihood of a lot of coastal communities, and thus it's important to include them in this kind of process. And then we would have this buffer zone, which depending on the phenomenons of the ocean in that year, it would either be a no-take zone or it would be a fisheries zone. So hopefully this will become a reality. And just about the Whale Shark Project, I always want to say a huge thank you to all of our collaborators and our donors. Without them, this would not be possible. And to you, I would really, really want to say that I really hope you can join us in our dive trip in September of 2022. And just to show you a little bit of what we might see if we go diving together. Well, this is the liveaboard. This is the Aqua, an absolutely spectacular boat. The dive platform is very comfortable. It has space for all your gear. It has space for all your camera equipment. And yeah, just the living areas are very comfortable. And then a little bit what we might see. We have whale sharks in the Galapagos, of course, the star. I might be a little bit biased. And then we have incredible sights such as the iconic images you might have seen of the Galapagos, like the schooling hammerheads, are my favorite safety stop buddy. The boobies love watching us whilst we're doing our safety stops. And a lot of other species of sharks, such as silky sharks, white-tip reef sharks, black-tip oceanic sharks, and more. We might actually see Mola alexandrini, the Southern Ocean sunfish, sea lions, moray eels, sea turtles, dolphins and other cetaceans, boxfish, and an endemic Galapagos blenny. And this is just the just a little introduction of what we might see if you come diving with me. So just to talk a little bit about what diving is like in the islands. If you see this heat map, you can see that there's a lot of different temperature gradients depending on where we are. So usually I personally like diving with a 7mm wetsuit. However, some people might be comfortable with a 5mm wetsuit, but I always recommend several layers because the central islands tend to be cool, and we will be diving in what is known as the cool season of the Galapagos. And this time is when the marine life is absolutely spectacular, but it might be a little bit colder underwater. So temperatures in the central islands might range from 18 degrees all the way up to maybe 22, 23. Then up in the far northern islands, we might actually see warmer waters, which is why we generally sight the whale sharks up in the north. So up here is where Darwin and Wolf would be located, and we might have temperatures of between 23 degrees all the way up to 26 degrees, depending on how cold or how warm the year is. And then you might see this very, very blue patch on the western side, and this is where water temperatures will be a lot colder. They might range all the way from 12 degrees all the way up to 18 degrees, depending on the year. And it is absolutely worth it to dive in these colder areas as well, because this is where we would see species such as the Southern Ocean sunfish. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer any of them. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, I'm back. Sophia, thanks so much for that. Very informative and inspiring. Some sad tales, obviously, about some of the whale sharks, but especially about hope. Good to hear about Coco and the marine park that might be created there between the two in the tropical Eastern Pacific there. And Nemo, I missed a bit about Nemo, I'm afraid, because I was just checking on the chat. One of the Q&As was from Kit, and I apologise about that, Kit. You asked about the water temperature range in the Galapagos, but I believe Sophia covered that a little bit. There's basically the two seasons, and you can go into this a bit more, Sophia. It's like the whale shark season, it's sort of 16 to 24 degrees, and in the manta season, it's 21 to 31, just generally. So it's a bit cooler during the whale shark season. We do have a few questions. Also from Kit, Sophia, he's asked if you have any idea of the age range of the whale sharks. Just a few questions and then I'll talk.
Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting question. We do know that they are adult female whale sharks, and it is believed that whale sharks become adults around 8 to 9 meters of length, which is believed that they reach when they're around 30 years old. However, this is not precise, because we do not know yet how long whale sharks can live. It is believed that they can live up to about 100, maybe a little bit over 100 years, but we still don't fully understand their growth rates. So I would assume that they would be, because they're adult female whale sharks, they're probably around over 30 years old, more than likely.
Oh, cool. Okie dokie. I don't think people really want to listen to me, but I better tell everyone about the boat, a little bit about the boat and about the trip, and then we'll get back to the Q&As. Thanks everyone for keep them rolling in the chat. Sophia and Jonathan, you hopefully can see the chat and the Q&A as well. So if you just bear with me, I'm literally going to tell everyone 5 minutes about the boat and a little bit about the trip. If you could give me back the screen, that'd be great, Sophia. Thank you. Oh no, it's me in big. I don't like that. Cool. Can you see those questions, both of you? Just while I do my talk. Cool. And then we'll we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so everybody, brilliant. We introduced the boat during lockdown. We found it was a fantastic value. It's a cozy, comfortable boat. Many reasons, mid-range, it's affordable. The crew are like an extended family, very welcoming and knowledgeable. And again, obviously the price. So it was something a little bit different. I believe we introduced it to Regal first and also to dive, but we have previously done a whale shark expedition and it was really popular. So we wanted to get the experts back on board, and here is this trip that we'd love everyone to join. There are only 15 spots. In fact, there are only 13 spots. So if you really want to go, now's your time to sign up. It's just 26 meters, only 16 people, 9 cabins. The Galapagos Park does keep a careful watch on the itineraries that all the boats do, and you have to stick with them. Jonathan told me earlier he's very excited for this because of the boat here, the itinerary that we do. You get 3 days up north and in the west, which means as well as all the fantastic show guys, you get penguins, iguanas, and probably mola. But it's the Galapagos, guys. The diversity is incredible wherever you are. The boat is cozy, see, nice and bright and airy. A lot of bunk cabins. The way things are priced, it's first come, first served. So if you have your eye on a specific cabin, sign up. The dive deck there is nice and spacious. The living area, everyone eats together. I'm sure. I imagine a lot of you have been on a liveaboard before. It's just a week of amazing fun diving, and you'll have Sofía on board. She'll be doing lots of talks about the whale sharks. Obviously, you'll see a lot, hopefully with 100 tagged and 600 individuals seen. It will be an amazing adventure and some fantastic encounters. It's right in the prime season as well, so we've timed it really well. Sofía will be talking about the Galapagos in general, citizen science projects such as Wild Book. I know when I went and saw mine in Mexico, I came back and found out which one it was and just had a little nose to see where he went. I think it was like MX5 or something, but that's a Mazda. So it's something like that. And generally she'll be talking about whale sharks, marine invasive species, and a little bit of plastic pollution as well. So, you know, there's plenty to be done during the week, as well as some amazing diving. As well as all of that, it's the whale shark season, so there are, you probably see some mantas and some other rays, but they're the big guys this year. Also see the hammerheads, I believe, throughout the year. Sometimes there's massive schools, sometimes there's walls, depending on the season. Yep, 7 nights trip, all meals included. You'll need a 7mm wetsuit, the full body, and probably some under stuff for the colder sites. All this information is available, obviously, on our website, and we can send it to you later in this week. Sorry. So, a few little marine highlights for me. These little sea lions are something I want to see as well. You know, sharks galore, hammerheads, and the star of the show, the whale sharks. I really wish I could go on this trip, but I might have to company to do that. Here's a map, and I think Sofía and Jonathan can probably talk through this a bit more in the Q&A, a bit better than me. But you'll fly from the UK onto mainland Ecuador, spend the night in Guayaquil, and then fly over to Baltra the next day, where the boat starts. The itinerary takes you to Bartolome. I think, is that where the penguins are? I'm not sure. I've never been, as you can tell. Cousin Rock, and then up here, seeing some great pictures of La Banana dive site. You'll also see the non-arch of Darwin's Arch, but as you've seen from Sofía's talk, that's where the whale sharks will be. The itinerary has a lot of time up in this area, so you'll no doubt have time of your life. And down here in Cape Douglas as well. So, you know, you get the best of everything. Oh, but then it comes back round here. And then there are also a couple of land excursions towards the end of the trip too. Or you guys can extend on that. The other great thing about this trip is in September next year. We've really tried our best to keep the deposit as low as possible. So it's only a 10% deposit for now, and it's part of our flexible booking policy. So we do whatever we need to do to get this going. Oops. Just remember, guys, there are only a few spots, and Sophia is an amazing whale shark person. So if you really are into whale shark and you want a trip of a lifetime, there's nothing else to say, really. Sign up. Sue from our marketing department will be in touch again later this week with a few booking incentives and details. And yeah, we'll learn a bit more. We can send you the full trip itinerary on that. The trip also includes a donation to the Galapagos Whale Shark Project as well. So the guys can keep on working and studying these massive but elusive islands. Did you see the size of that whale shark that Sophia put the tag on? I mean, you were about the same size as it's been, man. It's amazing. Brilliant. I can tell you more when I'm back in the office tomorrow, but yeah, sales guys are on hand all the time. Just give us a call, send us an email, and we'll tell you more about the boat and the itinerary. That's enough from me. Let's start the Q&A. It seemed to be rolling in. We did have a few, excuse me, that were sent in previously. I think we've covered most of those. The collapse of Darwin's Arch has an effect on any local and migratory wildlife. Do you guys know? Because it's quite a recent falling, so I don't know who's been out there. Sophia, maybe had you?
We personally have not had the opportunity to be out there, but we know quite a few of the dive guides have, and they've already been sending photo ID shots of whale sharks this year. We know the whale sharks are already there, which is actually fantastic. And yeah, everything, all the wildlife is still very much there. So we didn't really expect there to be a negative effect with the collapse of the arch, and it doesn't seem to be that way.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, one thing I did miss is someone's asked about the qualifications and minimum age for doing the trip. Well, we really recommend to be an advanced diver. Perhaps it's not the first place you go diving in the world. It is one of those bucket list trips, and some of the dives can be a little bit fast, a little bit chilly. You're in the blue quite a bit. Would you agree that?
Absolutely. We will have fantastic dive guides on board that are highly qualified. So they're always there to help if you have a little bit of less experience diving. However, as Sarah mentions, we will have some dives that could have higher levels of current, especially up in the north in Darwin and Wolf. We might have some strong currents some days. And yeah, you have to be comfortable with being able to dive out in the blue. That's usually where we go out looking for the whale sharks. And sometimes we don't have the reef right by us. But yeah, for anyone that loves diving.
Brilliant, thanks. Cool. Oof. Okay, some of these I've just gone to the chat. Jonathan, have you seen any questions in the chat box that you
yes, I've seen quite very, very fascinating questions, and ones that would probably take a lot more time than we have.
Yeah.
That caught my eye. One I think was from Rob about his son James, who's 10. Did I get the name right? And what difference can he make, or how can he help save whale sharks? I think, first of all, that the future of this planet lies in the hands of the young, the youth. And so I think it is fantastic that he has an interest in saving whale sharks. I think any kind of individual or collective help for the oceans makes a difference. So some people say, well, it's just me, I can't make a difference. Yes, you can. Every single one of us can make a difference. Doesn't matter, where you're from, what your age is, whatever. Eat sustainable fish from sustainable fisheries. Make sure that you're not using any of the squalene products that Sophie mentioned earlier on. So things that are derived from sharks or rays. So it could be glucosamine tablets with a squalene oil in it, for example, that you can buy in Boots or any other pharmacy, around the world. So make sure that you sort of read up a little bit and you understand what the impact of that can have on our oceans. So responsible behavior and eating sustainable from sustainable fisheries. Also, I think talking about it, talking to those people that have or are in a position to make the changes. So right now, sadly, no longer for the UK, but Europe is questioning sharks and shark commercialization. The United States has just passed a bill which outlaws the sale or commercialization of shark fins, which is absolutely huge because San Diego was one of the biggest exporting ports in the world. So from South America and Eastern Pacific, all of those fisheries, a lot of which are illegal, then ship them up to San Diego and then they're shipped out to places like Asia where of course the market is, or the demand is greater. So by pressuring people in positions, United Nations, governments, institutions, organizations, all of us can make a difference. So I think that was a very, very important question. It doesn't matter if you're 10 or 100, we can all help with this.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sophia, if I could, Elaine was one of the first people here this evening. She's a Q&A there about the gestation length of the whale shark. And have you ever seen a whale shark young being birthed? Always a good one.
This is actually, this is a fantastic question. And the answer is we don't really know. So there have been fewer than 40 neonates reported around the planet. So we don't even see the juvenile whale sharks right after they've been birthed. And nobody has ever seen a whale shark being birthed. So this is actually one of the things we're trying to uncover, and actually one of the most important things that we have to learn about is where they are reproducing and where they're giving birth. This would be one of the best ways to be able to protect this species.
Cool. Thanks. I've also got one from Pat, just a little bit about the trip, what involvement with the participants have. I know that you'll be doing talks and things like that, but I guess we can get involved with some citizen science projects perhaps. Over to you.
Would you like to answer this or should I?
Yeah, during the trip you'll be.
Yeah, so we always encourage participation in a lot of citizen science projects. So for any of you that like to carry out cameras underwater, we do talk about citizen science projects that are being carried out in the islands, and some of these are taking photographs of the whale sharks side, as I mentioned here in the talk, but we also do photo ID of sea turtles, of penguins, and of whale tails. So all of these serve as photo identifications that any of you can collaborate with when you're on board if you have a camera.
Fantastic. Sorry everybody, I'm just trying to catch up. There's been a lot of questions. I think I might have to get Jonathan and Sophia to answer some and include them in to the email around at the end of the week. This trip is a very special one, obviously with COVID. A lot of trips have been rescheduled from last year to this year to next year. Who knows? This one's going to happen for sure. So we are keeping an eye on the availability of the boat and hope to do these in the future because it's such an important trip in our minds from the dive and the Regal side as well, to make sure that everyone's having a fantastic adventure and great diving experience, but also to get involved with a bit of citizen science and have an expert on board just makes the trip just so much better, in my opinion anyway. I would love to be on board. Perhaps one for Jonathan, but both of you as well. Basit has asked, have you ever encountered any resistance or disagreement regarding the tagging and collecting of biopsies? You can decide who answers that, you two.
I think very minor resistance. There were a couple of dive guides, or a few dive guides, maybe fewer than 1% in Galapagos, who believed that when they were up in Darwin and they didn't see whale sharks, it was because we were there tagging the whale sharks, and that they somehow were communicating the fact that we were tagging the whale sharks. This is not the dive guides. Were communicating to each other not to go to Darwin because the scientists were there. So the resistance has been very low, fortunately, and most people have realized that what we're doing has almost zero impact. The biopsy that we take would be the equivalent of, not even a pinprick in the finger of a person, and the satellite tags would be, not even a tiny little earring, perhaps, relative to the size of a human. So they don't notice, as Sophie mentioned, and you probably saw the one that she tagged there, and that was one of many that we've tagged. They are sometimes aware of the divers in the water, but when you put that little clip, if you like, which just is attached by pressure, it doesn't go through the skin or anything, they don't even realize that they've been satellite tagged. And what they often do is when they realize that there are divers in the water, is that they'll turn around and they'll swing by and look at us. They're very curious. And to look eye to eye into a whale shark's eye is quite an unusual feeling. And they're not shy, just very, very gentle. The only dangerous part about them is their tail, which might incidentally sort of knock you as it goes by, but otherwise, it's the most extraordinary experience. And no, I think most people realize that the study is for the future and the conservation of the species.
Fantastic, thanks. There's a few people asking about equipment. Yes, we can arrange equipment rental, and also about the dive sites. Sophia, there's been a few questions about the strength of the currents and the average depth of dive and that kind of thing. I'd imagine there's quite a few variants depending on the site, but if you could maybe just give us a little brief about the deepest dive, or like how the dives are at Darwin and that with the whale shark.
Absolutely. So on all the dives, we will be staying at recreational limits. So you will never be diving below 20 meters of depth. And there's actually no need. Even by snorkeling in the Galapagos Islands, you see pretty much everything that a diver might see. Just a diver has that experience of being underwater and being a part of this marine world. So we will not be going very deep. None of our dives are deep dives. And the currents can be strong. It depends on the dive site. As I mentioned earlier, mostly in the far northern islands, we can have days where the current is absolutely ripping, and other days where it's like a swimming pool. So we don't really know until we get there. However, most other dive sites are not will not have that strong of a current. They generally just have kind of a drift current. So most of the dives in the Galapagos Islands are drift dives, where we will be going with the current. So you're not fighting, you're not fatiguing yourself, you're not fighting against the current. Yeah, so it depends a lot on the dive site.
Fantastic. There are quite a lot of questions about products and tagging and things like that. I think for now we need to concentrate on the experience that people are going to have. I just wondered, I'm going to put the poll up again, everybody. Just for those who are really interested in grabbing one of those exclusive spots on the trip with Sophia, to make sure that we can get the information to you as soon as possible. So if you do want to get some information as soon as you can, please let us know by answering this poll. Sophia, for me, I was just going to ask, do you have a favourite area? Or apart from whale sharks, do you have and turtles, because you've done some studies on them? I guess you're kind of spoiled for choice. But do you have a favourite area that you prefer to like to dive around the Galapagos?
I absolutely adore diving in the Galapagos. Just everywhere is spectacular and everywhere is so unique. You know, it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to have an amazing experience. However, I do love diving in the West, even though I really, really dislike being cold. It is worth it. The two dives that we do on the western side of the islands, one is in Punta Vicente Roca, first of all, it is the most spectacular vertical wall. We have the most incredible invertebrates on this wall. And it is also the site where we are most likely to see mola alexandrinis. And just, yeah, I absolutely love seeing these animals underwater. And we also frequently dive with sea lions in this area. They're very playful here, so we might be diving alongside the vertical wall and they'll come and join you, maybe nibble at your fins and just kind of dance with you. So I love that dive site. And then the other dive site on the western side, Cabo Douglas, is where we'll do our very, very shallow dive with marine iguanas, where we just kind of hang out at 5 meters deep, not very deep at all, and just watch the marine iguanas feeding. And yeah, this is unique. It is an amazing dive that you probably will not have anywhere else in the world. So yeah, definitely those.
Sounds fantastic. I'd love to see the penguins.
Oh yeah, those two. I love those two.
Is it possible to do dry suit diving on the trip? Someone's asked. Sorry, was it too warm, do you think, guys?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is dry suit suitable or not? Is it better to be in a wetsuit?
I wouldn't really recommend it. Would you?
Dry suit, if you really do get very, very, very cold and uncomfortable, a dry suit might be the way to go. But of course, most of the areas it would be too warm. It would only be really useful on the western side of Isabella and Fernandina, and it does increase your air consumption. So if you're trying to swim with whale sharks, and of course they can often be slightly more bulky, so it might slow you down in the water. So if you want to swim out and swim alongside a whale shark, that might slow you down. Air consumption increases a little bit, and it might be a little bit too warm in some places.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions. There's quite a lot of sciencey ones there, are way above my my head. But I think we've covered quite a few of them. Hopefully he's very jealous of all the studying that you guys are doing. Jonathan, I think you're heading back to the Galapagos soon to start this the monitoring again for this whale shark season. What kind of thing does that involve for you and the team?
Incredible to be able to get back there. You mentioned before COVID and uncertainty. So unfortunately, Galapagos has had a huge vaccination program going. So just about everybody who wants or needs the vaccine has one. So it's a destination we can now go to. We were lucky last year. We had to jump through a lot of hoops to continue the research, but we did carry out research, and I think 3 or 4 dive trips in total last year, despite the whole pandemic situation. Heading back there now in July, mid-July probably, and just very, very excited. This is what's known as a Nina year. So water temperatures are a little bit lower than usual. And so already by the end of April, beginning of May, the first whale sharks were being sighted in Galapagos. So we know that this is probably going to be a fairly intense year in terms of whale sharks. And it's often a pattern. So you often get 3 to 4 consecutive Nina years, which of course bodes well for next year as well. So extremely excited and can't wait to get back.
Super jealous. And I bet you can't wait to get back out as well, Sophia. I believe you're on the Aqua this season already. Got a few trips for either for customers or for research as well, I'd imagine.
Yes, both, and very, very excited to be back there. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been diving there. Well, it'll be about a year when I start diving there again, and just can't wait to see all these sites again, see the whale sharks again, and keep going with our research.
Awesome. We will try and get as many answers to the questions that I might have missed, but we are a little bit out of time now. So I just wanted to say, guys, thank you so much for the presentation, Sophia, and the Q&A. Jonathan, for joining us. We've learned a lot. Everyone's so excited about it, about whale sharks. It's one of my favourite animals. I would be on board if I could, like I said. Remember, there are only 13 spots available, guys. So book your spot as soon as you can, really. Don't miss the boat, so to speak. Always a good one, that one. And then we hope to be able to run the trip again in the future, but 2022 is where we need to start. So let's get that filled first. Thank you so much, Sophia and Jonathan. for
Thank you.
a great event, and thanks everyone for joining us. And if you are in the UK, just stay inside next couple of days. Think about your trips for next year. Great time to be booking a holiday.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.